Hello, this is John Stamps, Lead Information Developer for BMC Software. This video series describes how to create third-party certificates to use with BMC Cloud products. Specifically, I'm going to show you how to create private and public keys to install and configure the new 4.5 self-check monitor. You'd use essentially the same steps with any of our cloud products. This video series has 3 videos: creating keys and certificates, which is this video, how to use the certificate during installation, the second video, and how to configure third-party certificates like GoDaddy or Symantec to use with our products. In this video series, we're going to use Symantec as our certificate authority. Let's look at the URL to the docs.bmc.com website, and you'll notice some interesting things with it. When you use HTTPS in a URL, the Hypertext Transfer Protocol over SSL shows you that the communication over the internet is encrypted to prevent eavesdropping from hackers and other kinds of evildoers. But that's not the only layer of protection. The website you're visiting, in this case docs.bmc.com, is authenticated by a certificate authority, specifically in this case Thought, which is now owned by Symantec. The third-party certificate authority, or CA, issues a public key shown by the green padlock. The CA certifies the ownership of the public key. Any signature made by the private key that corresponds to the public key is certified by the CA to be secure. Here are some important prerequisites before you begin. Download and install the 64-bit 1.7 Oracle JRE on your product host and install it. Remember, we're doing all of this for the self-check monitor. The JRE contains a utility called the keytool. You use it to manage keys and certificates. And by way of tips, during installations, I always typically use the defaults unless I have a good reason to do otherwise. The next thing I do is create separate folders to hold your keys and certificates. I create keys, certificates, and CSR folders under the C drive. Install a good text editor. I prefer Notepad++, but your mileage may differ. Install a good browser on the product host. I love Google Chrome because it has really useful troubleshooting tools. The first thing that we're going to do is use the keytool utility to create a private key. For secure communication, you need a private key and a public key. This is called a key pair. In this step, we're creating the first half of the key pair, the private key, in the keystore. A keystore stores both your private and your public keys. When you create the private key, there are some important keytool options that you should know about. -gen generates the actual private key pair. -alias creates a unique alias for the keystore. If you don't enter anything as a new alias, the default is my-key. -keystore creates the name of the actual keystore, in this case keystore.jks. -key size, that option must be at least 2048-bit to generate 2048-bit certificates. 1024 is not secure enough anymore. In the JRE bin directory, enter the following command. Change it as the traditional password. To finish creating the private key, enter your organization information into your keystore. And here are some important tips. Enter the fully qualified domain name of your server. Don't enter your first and last name, like the prompt implies. and enter the full name of your state. The abbreviation CA isn't good enough. Symantec demands that you spell out the full name California. Here's what the prompts look like. Enter the fully qualified domain name of your server. Enter your org unit. Enter your company name. Enter your city. Enter your state. Again, the full name. Enter your country. Accept it. And your key store is created after you enter the change it password. The next important step is to create the certificate sign-in request, or a CSR. What we're doing here is creating the second half of the key pair, that is, the public key. A CSR is basically a public key that we generate on our server that validates the computer-specific information about your web server and your organization when you create the certificate. You create a certificate sign-in request to send to a third-party company like Symantec or GoDaddy. This private key remains on your server, and you should never, ever, never, ever, ever release it to the public. You control this private key, not Symantec. Here's what CSR generation looks like. Enter the keytool command, hit return, enter change it as the password, and the key store is created. The next important stage is to send the CSR to the certificate authority. The certificate authority in return sends you a signed SSL certificate. Here is the CSR process. Open the CSR file in a good text editor like Notepad and copy the contents and only the contents. Don't add any extra spaces, don't remove anything, or you'll corrupt the certificate. Go to a CA like Symantec, enter the server platform, paste the contents into the form, continue, and then submit the certificate. In return, the CA will send you email with your new SSL certificate. Several steps are required to get your new SSL certificate to work correctly. Most vendors apparently use variations of the same steps. What surprised me is that Symantec sent me instructions for 3 different certificates, and this is what I had to do to get the Symantec certificates to work correctly. Download and save the certificates, and keep these 3 certificates straight in your head and do not confuse them. I use the following naming conventions to keep them straight. I have a root certificate, an intermediate certificate, and an SSL certificate. It's important not to mismatch the root and intermediate certificates. Use the correct certificates for your particular environment, that is, in this case, Tomcat. And then import the certificates into your key store, in this case, keystore.jks. Here are the steps. Carefully copy the contents of the root certificate, paste it into Notepad++, and make sure that there are no extra spaces or information deleted. Save it, your root certificate, in the certificates directory. Give it a proper name and a .cer extension, and save it. Now follow the same steps for the intermediate certificate. Copy the certificate information, don't leave anything out. Paste it into your text editor, and then save it with the proper name and extension, intermediate.cer. To save the SSL certificate, go to the email that Symantec sent you and carefully copy the information. and then paste it into your text editor. For some reason, I've had problems with the copy paste adding extra spaces, so make sure you don't add anything extra, and save the certificate with its proper name and extension. Now import the root certificate into the Trusted Root Certificate Authority on your browser. This is necessary only for trial certificates. Here is what the import process looks like. Go to the settings on your browser, navigate down to where you manage your certificates in the advanced settings, and then import the root certificate. Import the root certificate into the Trusted Root Certification Authority. And when you're prompted to add the root certificate, then approve it. Now you're going to import the root certificate that you saved into the certificates folder into your keystore. And this keytool command should look reasonably familiar to you by now. Here are the steps. Enter the keytool command, enter the password, type yes to trust the certificate, and your certificate is added to the keystore. The next important stage is to import the intermediate certificate into the keystore. Once again, enter the keytool command, enter the password, and your certificate is added to the keystore. Finally, install the SSL certificate into the keystore. This is your last keytool import that you're going to do right now. The only hitch is make sure that you use the same exact alias that you used when you created the private key in the first place. Enter the keytool command to import the SSL certificate, enter the password, and your certificate is added to the keystore. As a sanity check, verify the keystore contents. Use the keytool to verify that the SSL certificate is indeed imported into the keystore. Enter the keystore command to list all the certificates and pipe it into a text file. Enter the password and then navigate over to open the file up in a text editor and review all the certificates in your keystore. To summarize, ever so briefly, we've done two very important things. Number one, we've created private and public keys, and two, we've imported third-party certificates from a trusted certificate authority into our keystore. We're now ready to use our keystore when we install the self-check monitor. Thank you so much for watching this video. I sincerely hope I didn't tax your patience or your attention span very much. Thank you.